Coming up this week on At Issue, we'll be talking about economic development here in our region. In a rural area, what incentives are available to business and industry? What are small communities doing to stay relevant? We'll address those questions and more next on At Issue. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lori Casey, your host for this week's show. Today, our topic at issue is rural development and what does it take for small communities to not only survive, but also to entice business and industry to locate here to our region. Recently, Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack spoke at the Renewable Fuels Association and the National Biodiesel Board meeting. In his speech, he provided several comments about how rural America provides a great deal to everyone across our nation. For example, rural America grows more than 85% of the food that our nation consumes. When it comes to clean water and clean soil, more than 80% of the potable water that is domestically consumed is first being filtered through U.S. Forest Service watersheds, as well as through privately owned lands in rural areas. Now, rural America also provides a majority of our country's fuel and energy, both through traditional means and by producing groundbreaking biofuels. Now, to further discuss our topic about rural economic development, I'm joined this week by Anthony Pleasant from Coals Together and Stepheny McMahon, Executive Director of the Sullivan Chamber and Economic Development. Thanks for coming on At Issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get our discussion started first by, Tony, I'll start with you. Explain what does Coals Together do in terms of economic development?
Coals Together is a not-for-profit 501c6 organization that markets all the facilities and the land in Coles County to industrial clients.
Okay, so you don't deal with retail, so if a fast food chain wants to?
No.
Okay, so
those are done through the Chamber of Commerce in both towns. All we do is industrial, manufacturing, distribution, and assembly.
Okay, Stepheny, let's talk about what your area does in terms of economic development.
Sure. Since Sullivan's a smaller town, our office, we house the Chamber of Commerce, the economic development. We also do community development and tourism. So we wear a lot of hats. We do festivals and the tourism promotion along with tracking empty buildings. Of course, we would welcome new manufacturing, but it's so highly competitive, and without an interstate or airport, that puts us farther down on the list. So we do what we can to retain our bigger businesses and try to support our retail and nonprofits and help them be successful.
Well, let me start by posing you both this question that if you maybe turn on the TV, you see the small towns are dying. What's your response to that? Stepheny, I'll start with you.
I don't think they're dying, or they don't have to die. If we all love our small town and we all think there's something special about it, which is why we live there. And I think if we're all proactive in promoting our assets and working hard to keep and maintain good infrastructure, I think you can create an attraction of your small town and find the positive things about it that make people want to come and live there or work there or open a business there.
Mm-hmm. Tony, what's your response to that?
I would agree. They're not dying as much as they're changing. Mm-hmm. Each town has to find what makes it work. Mattoon's right on an interstate. Charleston's got Eastern Illinois University. So each town has to find what makes them special, what they have to offer, and go after that.
So let's get into how economic development works. Tony, if a business or an industry says, I'm looking for a place to locate, mm-hmm. what does Coals Together do for them, or how does that process start, and what do you provide to them?
Typically they come through the state. A company will contact the state and say, we're looking for a building in downstate Illinois or maybe the whole Midwest. That gets sent on to our office, and we look for a building in our inventory that meets those requirements. Sometimes we have a building, sometimes we don't. Mm-hmm. When we do, you fill out a ton of paperwork and you send it back to the company, and we don't even know who it is. They're under code names, Project Tree, Project TV, whatever it is, and you hope to make your cuts, whittle it down, and you eventually start enticing the company to come to your community.
So what are those companies looking for? We're talking about industry. We'll get to small business in just a minute. What is an industry typically looking for when they're looking to relocate, maybe to central Illinois?
It's actually not as much the money. A lot of times you think it's the grants or something, but that's pretty universal across all communities. If you have a great building, something that's inexpensive, you also have to have employees. So a lot of communities and a lot of other states don't have that or don't have as trained workforce. They're also looking for their customers. And if they have you have a company in your town that consumes a lot of a certain product, you may have somebody come to town that manufactures that because they have a built-in customer.
So the old adage, location, 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 does that hold true for industry?
That holds completely true. And that's really the only reason industry moves. There's some industry has died and it gets replaced with something else. It's all about trying to put it in the best location possible.
Okay, Stepheny, I'm going to turn it over to you. Small business retail business looking to come to Sullivan. What sort of things do you provide to them?
Mostly it's support is in a retail capacity. If they want to locate, we help them find a location. We're glad to work with the city in talking about incentives or what they have. We work with SCORE counselors here in Charleston and around the region if they need that type of mentorship. And we see that a lot. A lot of people come in and want to open a business and they have a great idea, but they have no idea what's going to be involved. And over historically, and I think all towns see this, a new business will get started and then they'll close within a year or two and say, well, Sullivan didn't support us or Mattoon didn't support us, but they weren't set up well in the first place.
Success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they weren't thinking how many donuts they had to sell to pay the rent and pay their employees and pay their taxes. And so they fail because, as we know, most new businesses don't make a profit for 3 to 5 years. And if they don't have that backflow of cash to keep them going, they're not going to make it no matter how many donuts we all eat. You know, so.
Is that a common problem that you see with a lot of businesses that start and close within that first year, that they don't have that cash backflow to sort of supplement that? It's going to take 2 years to make some money here?
I think so, because especially in these times we are seeing a lot more entrepreneurs, people who think I'll just start my own business, which is great. But what we're trying to do is help them get the support up front so they can, instead of opening and closing, they can slow down and make those choices and have good mentors before they ever open. And we'll even see it as a success if we help them and they choose not to open, because they're not going to lose. You know, we want to make sure they're able to make the right decision to stay in business long term.
Let's talk about some of the assets that our region has that would be attractive to possible industry and small business. Tony, what do you think?
Mattoon is ideally located on an interstate, which is very beneficial. We also have good and bad, but we do have a couple of empty facilities. We only have basically 2.5 left, but those are your biggest assets. So those are what we market. We have a lot of population, things like the hospital, airport, Eastern. Lakeland is a huge asset with their job trainings program. So we have a few things, but those are your highlights.
Stepheny, what about you?
I think all towns promote, you know, great schools, great parks, and safety. But one thing in Sullivan that we feel very strongly about is our recreation. We're just north of Lake Shelbyville, so people from Chicago can come down and they don't realize how inexpensive they can have a boat and go boating and have that outdoor space. The little theater on the square provides finer arts. Right there, there's no parking problems. You're not paying for parking, and you get to see live theater. And then some of the other arts activities that we're promoting, as well as the Amish in the region, is a very attractive lifestyle. And I think just coming into a simpler lifestyle is very attractive to a lot of people.
I wanted to talk to, or go ahead.
If I can piggyback on that,
sure.
She talked about the area being less expensive for citizens from Chicago. It's the same way with industry.
Right.
Your property costs up there are $100,000 an acre minimum. You can come here, create a factory, a business, much less expensive. The payroll's much less expensive. The taxes are much less expensive. So that's one of those ways that a smaller community can in some ways be more beneficial to a company than a large city.
Well, and just overall our cost of living, when you look at
I mean, those people actually have to live in the town.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we do industrial and attract other businesses and help retain the ones we've got. But, you know, after 5 p.m. we live here too, you know. So I mean, it's the quality of life is a huge asset.
Stepheny, you were talking about tourism. How big of an asset or financial impact does tourism have for some of our small towns that maybe can't attract a big factory, but tourism?
Right, it's a huge business, and Sullivan hasn't tapped into everything we should. Some communities are better than others, but that's why we're working on it and promoting it. According to the Army Corps of Engineers, 3.2 million visitors a year are using the facilities in and around the lake, and 50,000 tickets a year sold at the Little Theater. So people are coming here, and that's why we have to make sure our infrastructure is up to speed. We have to make sure our restaurants will stay open, our gas stations. The grocery store and the liquor store do great business during boating season and theater season. So our businesses really look forward to that time of year when visitors are coming in.
And tourism is just wonderful for a small town. It's not so much what we do, but it's wonderful because it's dollars coming into your community. They're not being spent by your citizens that are already there. It's like free money that's coming in.
Right.
Now that clerk in that store now gets to spend, and he spends it in the community. So tourism is just wonderful.
I think about in your area, you've got Sullivan, Arthur, and Arcola, that huge tourism.
Right.
And I know Arcola, with the Wall Dogs mural project, that was driven a lot by tourism, and they're hoping that that increases.
Right.
So you see that. I think that's a great way for small towns to increase their revenues.
Exactly. And we work with Arthur, Arcola, and Tuscola. We're an organized group called the Amish Country, CVB. And so we do combined marketing and apply for grants together, hoping that if people come down, get off the interstate at Tuscola or Mattoon, wherever, they'll go ahead and tour the whole region. Or if they're coming from the Lincoln Museum in Springfield, they'll come this way, and so showing them that we have more to do than one community alone.
Right, working together.
Right.
Yeah, because you can travel between those three towns quicker than you can drive from one side of Chicago to the
Exactly.
other. So there's a difference in that quality of life.
Yeah.
So have you noticed, I mean, everyone talks about the economy, how has the economy, the downturn in the economy, changed what you do, or maybe your approach?
Well, you go ahead.
For us, our attractions are less. There's less companies necessarily looking, but it's more companies growing. And it was slow, 2007, 2008. The companies that were successful kind of held on to their money and stayed calm. And now we're starting to see expansions, companies investing in their buildings, purchasing new ones, expanding their lines of product. So ours was more focused on retention and helping those companies do their enterprise zone projects and their edge projects locally.
On a retail level, it's affected us in that the banks aren't loaning money as readily, maybe not taking as big of risk as they did historically. I think we're starting to see that ease up a little bit, but I think all the banks are very cautious now because of what happened with the economy and all. So
Coles County has a program called the CDC, which is Community Development Corporation, and it's basically all the banks have come together. And if a project comes that's slightly too risky, it's a good project, but it's slightly too risky for one bank to take on, they'll all come together and then only put a smaller portion in. That way the risk is less to each institution. And that's a way that we can help finance some projects that are B grade as far as a bank would consider, but good projects nonetheless.
So is that a project where each bank is putting so much money into the pool or whatever?
When it was created, and then they loan the money out, and as the money's repaid, that money is turned around and then loaned right back out to another company.
And how long has that program been in place?
Oh, probably 15 years.
Okay. Okay. Let's talk about incentives, or things that like Coles Together provides. There are grants and loans and different things to sort of help people get started.
I got a little cheat sheet.
Okay.
The big one that we do, one of them we administer locally, is the enterprise zone, which is in Coles County you have to be industrial to utilize it, but it freezes your property tax on any improvement you make to your facility, or if you build a new one, you don't pay any property taxes for 10 years on that new project, which can be same way with retail. That first few years is the hardest, so it's kind of a good incentive. It also, they don't pay any sales tax on their building materials. More on the retail side, less what Coles Together does, but what the communities have. We also have TIF districts in Mattoon and Charleston that help the retail side. There's a few grants, not grants as much as programs to the state. ETIP, which is an economic training program, It provides some matching funds for training your employees. EDGE, which is Economic Development Growth Economy, it's also a tax credit that a company can apply towards their state corporate taxes based off new hires. So there's a few of those, and what Coles Together will do is research those, find out if it's going to work for your company, and help you fill out the application and get it processed.
Okay, Stepheny, let's talk about TIF. I mean, it's tax increment financing, but what does that mean?
Well, when our TIF was created in 1986, it kind of holds steady the property taxes that are going to the taxing bodies, and then it gives the city the power to negotiate that those new monies that come in. So if a new business comes in and signs a TIF agreement with the city, then the increased value in the property because of the improvements they're going to make is split between the developer and the city. And then for those 26 years of TIF, I'm correct, right, 26 years, then the city is supposed to use that money to build infrastructure, you know, improve the roads, improve the water, sewers, electricity in Sullivan's case, to support those businesses. And Sullivan has 3 TIF districts, and they've been very successful. I know TIF is controversial in some cities, and a lot of them are talking about starting TIFs, but we've had real strong agreements with the city, with the county, intergovernmental agreements, and help make whole some of their loss. And it's been a very successful program for us in Sullivan.
Let me ask you this: why is TIF in some communities controversial? What's the issue?
I think people think it gives the city more control than they should, and you are taking a chance that nothing will happen in 26 years, and the fire district, the school, whatever, will be held at those original tax rates. And I think that's a fear that as costs come in and expenses grow, that the school and those taxing bodies won't have more money. So, I mean, is that how you feel?
Some, especially bigger cities, ideally TIFs were created to help areas that need help. And not so much in smaller towns because you can't really, but big cities, a lot of cities in California, they put TIFs in areas that didn't need help getting developed. And then the companies are taking advantage and getting bond dollars and grant dollars and things and on projects that would have come either way. Where in smaller communities, you're putting them in your downtown areas that actually do need an economic boost to help growth.
So when you talk about TIF district, it's a geographic part of the community. Okay, so where is it where are they in Sullivan? You said you had
our TIF 1 is the downtown and most of the commercial district. TIF 2 is out where Hydrogear, our biggest manufacturer, is on the south end of town, and TIF 3 is on the northwest corner where the new jail and Marvin Keller Trucking are. Okay. And he's right. The definition says TIF is to be used for blighted areas, and a lot of that's up for interpretation. We might think, oh, that's not blighted, but somebody coming from LA might say, oh, your whole town is blighted, you need help. So, you know.
What incentives do you offer through Sullivan for, you had talked about facade?
Facade. We, several years ago, the city instituted a facade grant match program for people who, what we found was our downtown buildings, they're not historic on a historic register, but they're historic to us. And when I started, I was asking the people, what do you want me to work on? And they all said, our poor downtown, I remember when. and we realized the people who own those buildings couldn't afford the maintenance on them because they're big 3-story brick and old windows. And so we put together, with TIF money set aside for this, a 50-50 grant match program. And if an owner will put up to $20,000 into their building, we'll match that. So they can get $40,000 worth of work for the for $20,000 out of pocket. And the city pays the architectural fees to have an architect come in and do a rendering. And we try to work with the property owners on what they want and also what we want for the downtown.
So what buildings in Sullivan have taken advantage of that?
We've done projects on 33 buildings now. So downtown, what was Hoodie's Goodies, Metro Communications is doing a big project right now. The IGA, the Ace Hardware, we've had quite a few.
And are those only your buildings on the square, or is it extended out?
When we started the program, it was just the square and one block off. And as we grew, more businesses in the TIF district were asking for assistance, and so the city extended it to anyone located in a TIF.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about what do you think small towns need to do? I had posed this question at the beginning in the intro to the show to stay relevant, so they aren't seen as, you know, boarded up, closed. What do we need to do in our small towns and rural areas to stay relevant and thrive?
You have to accurately assess what your community has and what they don't have, what's realistic to achieve, and target your focus. And some communities aren't going to grow much beyond what they are. Simply, they don't have the infrastructure, they're not ideally located. You're not going to turn that into a major city. So make the quality of life for the citizens that are there. Other communities, areas that were once highly developable have changed. You know, a lot of stuff was done on rail. That's not as much the case anymore. So maybe you need to encourage your development to go a different direction in your town. So a couple of ideas of what communities can look at.
I like what Anthony said, to accurately assess, because I think a lot of us drive past the same broken down buildings every day, and we just know, don't look that way, look this way, or we don't see them anymore. But when a visitor comes to town or someone who's thinking of relocating, those are the things that stand out to them. So anybody can clean up a building or mow the lawn or plant flowers. And that's one thing our manufacturers asked of us when we said, what can we do? They said, clean up the town. We've got our business going well, but we're trying to attract people who want to live here. And if they come through town and it looks bad, the wife and kids aren't going to want to come.
Right. I was just going to say, an attractive downtown or main street, it says a lot about the town. You know, flowers planted, buildings restored, it makes a huge difference, I would think, in just the appearance to outsiders, but also pride in the community.
Oh, it does.
Exactly.
I mean, all those people have to work in that building, but then they have to go live in that town. And they, you know, they want it to be a nice place to live with good schools and churches and recreational opportunities and shopping, and so all those things are critical.
Right.
Well, in these last few minutes, let's end on a positive. Let's talk about some success stories, because it really, I think you've kind of answered the question, that small towns in our area aren't really dying, you know, are working to not die. Stepheny, talk about a success story from your area.
Probably the one that's getting the most press right now is the Factory Art Studios, and it's been a huge success for us in Sullivan. A local artist set up a workshop in the old brown shoe factory, which is a huge old building that a few years ago we wondered, are we just going to have to knock this down, or what's going to happen to this? And his creativity in setting up space attracted more artists. So currently there's 30 artists on the second floor of that old factory building, and they love it. They love the raw space, the brick walls, the wood floors, and that factory kept a lot of our families alive during the Depression. We all have family members, so there's a big historical significance. There's 20 artists on a waiting list now that we're hoping to move into the third floor, and so we're looking to grow upon that success.
Well, and I'll admit, I went to an event there, and there were a lot of people. I mean, you had said, because you were
600 people at the event in January.
So how big of a town is Sullivan?
We're about 4,500 population.
Yeah, so for that many people on a Saturday night to fill up that space is it was really neat.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. Tony, let's talk about a success from your end, from the industrial point of view.
Yeah, we've actually had a lot. You kind of get the impression that stuff isn't moving, but our unemployment rate here is lower than the state. The big one recently is Ox Paperboard purchased the Dow Chemical facility and their operation that was in Charleston. They were talking about closing, and Oxboard made a similar product and came in and purchased that facility, and will keep it up and running. Just for example, that building's 151,000 square feet. It pays $62,000 a year in property tax, with $32,000 of it going to the schools. So that's what a large industry can mean to your community. We also had American Select Tubing in the last 3 months, moved into the old Ampad facility and are going to get it up and running again. So we've had quite a bit of success. NCI last year, Machinery Management last year, Lester Buildings last year. So we've had some serious growth. Just a quick list to kind of give everybody an idea. R. Donnelly's has 1,600 people. GE 275, Pinnacle 192, Just Right 189. We've got several, Mars, Vesuvius, Blue Cross, Animet, Mattoon Precision. Walker, all over 100 employees, plus Eastern, Sarah Bush. We've got a lot of big, successful companies that are doing great things here.
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm not from here, but I heard back in, back in the day, when Trailmobile was here and, those out on 130, that was all, it's really starting to turn around.
Yeah,
it seems like.
Obviously, if you were here with Trailmobile was here and Blah and Knox, those are the two, big painful ones that were for both communities. But a lot of cities have had businesses close. The industry changes, something like that changes. There's nothing a community can really do. All we can do is work to get those buildings filled back up, get the guys back to work, diversify a little bit. Donnelly's is wonderful, but it's a huge number of employees in one facility. Having lots of 200, 300 employee establishments are also great. It keeps everything nice and level.
Right.
You have all your people at farm, all your people at Eastern, Lakeland, Sarah Bush, lots of different industries. That way your town's a little more isolated from economic events in just one area.
Right.
And if I could add, we're thrilled when Mattoon gets new business, when Decatur gets new business. We have a lot of people in Sullivan and Moultrie County who commute every day to Mattoon. It's not that, like you said,
we have people that go to AgriFab to work. It's a, I mean, this is
10 minutes to Mattoon is a lot better than commuting in traffic in Chicago.
Yeah,
it's a trickle-down effect. If its benefits over here, it'll eventually help everybody. I want to thank you too for coming on and shedding some light on economic development in our area. You guys doing good work and keep it up.
Thank you.
Thanks.